So we are talking about the kings of Israel, and we're going to recap, right? Go through the kings. So who was the first one? Abimelech, illegitimate king. He wasn't the real king. I mean, he was a king, but not picked by Yahweh. Then who? Good King Saul. And then we went through bad King Saul. And then anointed King David. And then great King David. And then repentant King David. And then the legacy of King David. And then last time we looked at wise King Solomon. And now we're going to look at King Solomon, the backslider. The backslider. So, backslide, what does that mean? Right? It means to lapse morally or in the practice of religion, or to revert to a worse condition. Retrogress. There's progress, and then there's retrogress. Going backward. Going backward. So, we saw that, we're going to look at how King Solomon backslid, right? And then we're also going to I want you to look at Solomon's life and look at your life and then compare. Am I backsliding or am I moving forward? There's no standing still, right? Either you're growing or you're dying. Nobody stands still. So, we looked at Solomon was what? Obedient, righteous, and wise. Who thinks they're that? Who thinks they're obedient and righteous and wise? I think most of the people here would say that. You don't have all the wisdom, but you're wise, obedient, righteous. But so how can somebody who is obedient, righteous, and wise backslide? So King Solomon was righteous, and he loved Yahweh, and Yahweh loved him. Did you know that Solomon had another name? He had another name, right? So 2 Samuel 12, 24 and 25 says, Then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and went into her and lay with her. So she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Now Yahweh loved him, and he sent word by the hand of Nathan the prophet. So he called his name Yedidiah, beloved of Yah. I mean, Yahweh just loved Solomon so much that, no, we're going to give you another name. Beloved of Yah, because of Yahweh. And Solomon built a magnificent temple to Yahweh. And Yahweh accepted Solomon's prayers and came and dwelt in the temple in the midst of Jerusalem. Like, of all kings or even people, like, nobody had it good like Solomon. Nobody, I know some of you have had a good upbringing, but look, I don't think you can compare to Solomon. The glory of Yahweh was in Solomon's temple. Maybe you had better upbringing than Solomon. So, Yahweh was pleased with Solomon, and people visited him from all over the world, to hear the wisdom that Yahweh put in his mind. And one of these people was the Queen of Sheba, also known as the Queen of the South, who heard of Solomon's grandeur. She heard about it, but she just couldn't believe it. I have to go and see this for myself, because I don't believe it. All right? So, verse 1 says, Now the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning who? The name of Yahweh. That's very important, as we'll see later. She came to test him with hard questions. In many movies, they say, the Queen of Sheba, they were like romantically involved with Solomon. We don't know. She might have been like 80 years old, But not that people who are 80 years old can't be romantic. I'm just saying, we're going with the scriptures here, okay? She came to test Solomon with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue with camels that bore spices and very much gold and precious stones. So nobody goes to the king with nothing. Usually when presidents come, they bring stuff. You come with gifts, right? You come bearing gifts. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. So these are hard, wise questions. Verse 3. So Solomon did what? Answered all her questions. Reminds me so much of Yahshua when the Pharisees would try to trip him up. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? So, if he says no, then okay, here you're telling us to go against the Roman Empire. But if he says yes, then what about serving Yahweh? But then he knew what was in their hearts. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to Yahweh what belongs to Yahweh. So Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing so difficult for the king that he could not explain it to her. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food on his table, the service of his waiters and their apparel, his cupbearers, and his entryway by which he went up the house of Yahweh, she was breathless. There was no more spirit in her. That's one of the best pictures I've ever seen of Solomon's grandeur. The Queen of Sheba visiting Solomon. She was just breathtaking. I think that's the term. It was just amazing. Then she said to the king, "It was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. However, I did not believe the words until I came and saw with my own eyes. And indeed, the half was not told me. Your wisdom and your prosperity exceed the fame of which I heard." I mean, it is greater and better than what I heard. Happy are your men, happy are these your servants who stand continually before you and hear your wisdom. She was just breathtaking. She said, everybody's so happy. Everybody's good. And she said, Blessed be Yahweh, who delighted in you, setting you on the throne of Israel. Because Yahweh has loved Israel forever. Therefore, he has made you king to do what? Justice and righteousness. So, the Queen of Sheba comes and she just sees this and she's taken aback. That term, the half, has not been told. I think it came from her. Solomon was indeed greatly blessed. And many of us here are greatly blessed. Maybe we don't have the wealth, but you have had an upbringing in the faith, right? We are greatly blessed. So then, how, right? How could he backslide? How can somebody who has so much going for him backslide? How can somebody whose father was godly and whose mother was godly, we have every reason to believe that Bathsheba repented of her sin. We'll see later, willing. But how can you have Yahweh and every earthly blessing imaginable and still leave Yahweh? It's like asking Satan the question, how can you be in the presence of Yahweh and choose to reject him? So let's look at some other words for backslide, right? These smart pigeons. What are words for backslide? Lapse. To go back to what you would, or you're doing right, but then you stop to go back to what you were not supposed to be doing. Or relapse, revert. I'm doing this, I turn around. Regress, retrograde, degenerate, right? You have been regenerated and you're going in the path to look like Yahshua, but now you're degenerating, looking back like what's supposed to be dead. To slip, to go astray, decline, to return to your sin. All that. So, let's see, what did Solomon do that Yahweh said he should not do? So the next one, a copy for me, please. That's the title. Yeah, a copy for me, please. So Solomon was a king, and there are commandments in the Torah, especially for kings. You see, Yahweh knew that at some point, the nation was going to ask for an earthly king, so he placed commandments in the Torah, especially for that. So we see here, commandments for kings. So when you come to the land that Yahweh, your Elohim, is giving you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and then say, I will set a king over me like all the nations that are around me, you may indeed set a king over you, whom Yahweh will choose, your El. One from among your brothers you shall set as king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. And then we jump to verse 18 and 20. And what does it say? And when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall do what? He shall write for himself in a book a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests. So Solomon, every king was supposed to write a copy of the law. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it when? All the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yahweh, his El, by keeping all the words of this law and these statutes and doing what? Doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment, either to the right hand or to the left. It's a straight line. You got to keep on that road, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, he and his children in Israel. Now, the book of the law more than likely refers to the book of Deuteronomy. That's the book that Moses wrote. Then they put that in the Ark of the Covenant. So Solomon was supposed to write for himself a copy of the law and follow it. Did he do that? Maybe in the beginning, maybe, but definitely not later. What about you and me? I mean, shouldn't we write a copy of the law for ourselves? Are we not a kingdom of priests, kings and priests to rule with Yahweh, with Yahshua? I think we should write a copy for yourself, huh? I started to write mine. Yeah. Deuteronomy 1 verse 1. So who can say that by Passover next year, you're going to have your own copy of the law? Anybody? Huh? No takers? Oh, Morgan? Okay. Sister Patty? No other takers? All you're going to do is copy it. Just type and copy it. You know, there is software today that you can talk into your phone and it will write for you. Okay, do you know that? Oh, come on. We're kings and priests, and the law still applies. We should have, Yahweh will write this on our hearts, right? In the new covenant, and he is. We should also write it for ourselves. I think it's good. I thought I'd have more takers, but okay. So Sister Morgan, Sister Patty, and myself. Next Peshach, we're going to have our own copies of the law. Next, children, what are these animals? Horses. Yes, many horses, right? And look at the next picture. Horses were used for war a lot, you know. I know they're little cute ponies, but in history, horses were like tanks used for war. In Deuteronomy, one of the commandments of the kings is that only he, too many horses, only he must not acquire many horses for himself or cause the people to return where? To Egypt in order to do what? Acquire many horses, since Yahweh has said to you, you shall never return that way again. So, but what's wrong with buying a horse? I mean, I thought Yahweh made horses. What's wrong with buying a horse? Sorry? Many horses. So what's wrong with buying horses? Egypt was the place to buy war horses. And Yahweh didn't want Israel to enter into alliances and depend on Egypt for military defense. We're supposed to rely on Yahweh. And horses, I was reading this, are like tanks. And that's an offensive way, right? Because you could just run over people. But Yahweh wanted Israel, the main purpose is to preach the gospel of Yahweh and be more in defense. In fact, there's a scripture in the law that says, before you go and attack any people, you have to first offer terms of peace. So Israel was not supposed to be an aggressive nation. In the scriptures, horses are used for battle, like in Proverbs 21, verse 31, which are probably Solomon's own words. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to Yahweh. Yahweh wanted Israel to rely on him for military defense. That would strengthen their faith and cause them to have a good, strong, healthy relationship with Yahweh. Did King Solomon buy horses? Did he? And also Solomon had horses imported from Egypt and Keve. The king's merchants bought them in Keve at the current price. I mean, like, seriously, like Solomon, did you read the scriptures? His father left him in a pretty good place. But he went and imported horses from Egypt. In the next verse, how many horses did Solomon? Maybe 2 or 3? Maybe that wouldn't be 2. Too bad. But Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he stationed in chariot cities and with the king, 12,000 horsemen. And that word horse in Hebrew can also be translated either horse or horsemen. So we don't know if it was 12,000 horses or 12,000 horsemen. But if you have 12,000 horsemen, I don't think they're sharing like 10 horses. No, you probably have like thousands of horses. That's too many horses. He clearly violated this commandment. Now, Solomon also entered into a trade alliance. See, when a nation buys stuff, they enter into trade agreements. So he entered into a trade alliance with Egypt, and he married Pharaoh's daughter. Solomon made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of Yahweh and the wall around Jerusalem. Now, Yahweh didn't say you couldn't marry any Egyptians, but, aren't there any other women in Israel? Why do you have to go to Egypt? Are people awake? Alliances, right? Are there no sisters in the faith that the title. You got to go outside. Too many monies and honeys. Yahweh said not to multiply silver and gold. Deuteronomy 17:17. And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest what? His heart turn away. Nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. Now we know Solomon was rich. Now some may say, well, but Yahweh gave him that wealth. Yahweh gave him that wealth. So how can we say that Solomon did a bad thing in having all that wealth? The wealth that Yahweh gave Solomon was for the nation. It was for the nation and not for himself. It was for the kingdom and for the people. But what does Solomon write in Ecclesiastes 2 verse 8? I also gathered for myself, silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. I really sometimes just wondering, is this deliberate? Are you just reading that part and just, you know what? I think I'll just break this. What's going on? But I think, when David died, the nation was the most powerful nation at that time, and nobody could attack them. So you get proud, you get rich, you get lazy. Too many monies, too many honeys. Solomon acquired for himself silver and gold, a direct violation of Deuteronomy 17:17. He also acquired many wives for himself. 1 Kings, verse 11. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which Yahweh had said to the people, "You shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you. For surely, what will they do? They would turn away your heart after their gods." Solomon clung to these in love. He had 700 wives. 700 who were princesses, meaning they were of royal birth, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. 700 wives. Like, see here, I now pronounce you man, and 700 wives. How can you have 700 wives? I have one wife, Sister Morgan. And sometimes she makes me, and she's such a good woman. Sometimes she makes me a breakfast sandwich, like that one up there. A breakfast sandwich. How can you have 700 breakfast sandwiches? That's too many. That's too many. Maybe two, but she can make both of them. 700 breakfast sandwiches. That's too much. Okay? That's too much for anyone. Oh yeah. Have you saints ever heard of sandwiches in the Bible? There's a verse about sandwiches in the Bible. No? No? Pastor Mike, no? Okay, look, here. Wait a minute. Oh, Charity, you have the wrong slide. Oops. There's another slide. Well, I want to read to you Genesis 22, verse 17 in the New American Standard Bible. It says, "Indeed, I will greatly bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens and as the sand which is on the seashore." Sandwiches on the seashore. Sandwiches in the script. Okay. I got to get serious now. Solomon loved all these women and clung to them in love. And when he was old, they turned his heart away from Yahweh. The Torah said exactly that that's what would happen. And now, a mother crying for her son. Solomon's mother was Bathsheba. We have reason to believe that Bathsheba repented of her sin with David and lived righteously, because she raised Solomon in a godly way. She was trusted. Remember, David had many wives and many kids. She was trusted by the prophet Nathan when Adonijah took the throne. She also obeyed everything the prophet told her to do. We have reasons to believe that she was righteous. Now, let's look at Proverbs 31, right? Proverbs 31 is written by a mother to her son. The king's name is Lemuel. Now, there was no Israelite king called Lemuel and no king in the surrounding nations. We don't have any history of who this king was or where he was king. Scholars say the proverb 31 may not be from the nation of Israel, because two words, son and kings, in verse 2 and verse 3, respectively, are Aramaic and not Hebrew. But the rest of the words are in Hebrew, and the proverb mentions Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. It very well could have been from Israel. I think it was from there. The whole proverb is about a mother's wise counsel to her son. And the mother believes in Yahweh, and she's encouraging her son to pursue a woman who followed Yahweh. So, how does she start the proverb, right? Proverbs 31:2 verse 3 says, "What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings." Could it be that Bathsheba saw Solomon multiplying all these women and wrote this passage for him? In her mind, she could be thinking, sorry, let's go back to the first slide, thank you. In her mind, she could be thinking, you don't need to multiply women, you just need one good one. One. And this is the kind of woman you should be looking for when she wrote Proverbs 31. But why would she use the name Lemuel, right? And Lemuel means devoted to Elohim. But could it be that she wants her son to continue to be devoted to Yahweh and not walk in the way of believers? But why use the name Lemuel? Maybe she's afraid. This is a wise proverb. Now, who would dare counsel a king whom kings and queens are coming to see from all over the world? It could. So she used a different name. But it's possible. Whatever the case, this is a proverb that Solomon should have listened to. Foreign love did not only destroy Solomon, it has destroyed and continues to destroy several believers even to this day. Samson destroyed his life with a foreign woman. Only at the end, by the great mercies of Elohim, did he repent and make it into the kingdom. The Israelites sinned against Yahweh when Balaam enticed them to take foreign women. How many young men and young women, even older people, have ruined their lives because of foreign love? What is foreign love? Any romantic relationship with a boy or girl, man or woman, who does not walk in the way of Yahshua. Right? Falling in love with an unbeliever is one of the greatest traps of Satan. And he keeps using it. Why? Because it works. It works. It is Satan's number one form of attack on this congregation. How many people have fallen in love with somebody and forgotten Yahweh? Or Yahweh didn't matter as much as this one person. Brothers and sisters, don't be unequally yoked. Don't date outside the faith. Look, don't pursue somebody who doesn't love Yahweh, but also don't retrogress. Like if I have come to the point where I am convinced that I should not keep Christmas or Easter, because we have learned that this is pagan worship, I shouldn't pursue any woman or any man that would cause me to retrogress, to go backwards. I tell you the truth, if you can compromise against Yahweh in one thing, you can compromise against Yahweh in anything. Anything. We don't compromise. With some of these folks, I'm telling you, don't give them the time of day. All you got to do is say, oh, please, and walk on. That's all. Just, I thought I'd get more laughs out of that, so let's just continue. Let's just continue. I understand you have needs. You want someone to love you tenderly, to kiss you goodnight, somebody to tell you you look nice, even though you really need to get rid of that dress. But they love you, huh? Yahweh knows you have needs. So you seek him in prayer. I think when I pursued my wife, Morgan, I thought I'd be like an example to others, Don't even think about dating outside of the faith. Don't even think about it. It's like Yahshua is saying, don't even think that I have come to abolish, it shouldn't even enter your mind. Don't think about dating outside of the faith, saints. This is a tactic Satan uses all the time, and it works because everybody desires romantic love, but you have to do things the right way. Our scriptures tell us how to do that. I'm telling you now because just in the last year, we lost some people. Maybe one, I think, in the last year or two, this romantic love. It's something that works, and you have to be proactively guarding against it. Proactively. Ecclesiastes was written when Solomon was old, and he regrets all that he has done as vanity, striving for the wind. It gets you nowhere. All the money and beauty gets you nowhere when you don't have Yahweh. So is that going to be you forgetting Yahweh because you fell in love with a boy or a girl who turned you away from Yahweh? Is that going to be you? Is that going to be your story? You loved a woman who liked other things, and now you're not interested in the things of Yahweh. See, here's the saddest story about Solomon, and maybe the saddest story really in all of Scripture. Right? Kings and queens came to hear Solomon's wisdom and to see the majesty of his kingdom. And we looked at the Queen of Sheba, right? And Yahshua speaks of the Queen of Sheba, calling her the Queen of the South, saying, the Queen of the South will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater than Solomon is here. Now just think about that. Let's move on to the next. Just think about that, right? The Queen of the South will rise up at the judgment. What does that mean? She will be resurrected with everybody else, with this generation, and condemn it. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater than Solomon is here. Think about that, right? That the Queen of Sheba came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and God saved. But Solomon lost in hell. I mean, is that not the saddest story, that people came from the ends of the earth to hear Solomon? See, Solomon wasn't just throwing out little words of wisdom. It was the gospel. It was the gospel, because she came to hear because of the name of Yahweh. It was the gospel. See, we have no record. Some people may read Ecclesiastes and say, well, at the very end, Solomon says, the whole duty of man is to love Yahweh or obey Yahweh and keep his commandments. So some say, well, you know what? At the very end, he repented. But the thing is, for all the kings who repented, they destroyed the idols. When King Asa came to reign, Solomon's great-grandson, the idols were still there. They were still there. We have no record that Solomon repented. No record. Solomon was a preacher. See, Yahshua is talking about the Queen of Sheba more than 900 years later, and that she came to Solomon and believed. She got saved. But Solomon, who preached to her, is in hell. Solomon was a preacher. His words weren't just nice sayings. Because he says there himself, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Is that going to be you? She sang songs in church, preached wonderful sermons. Her testimonies just made me love Yahweh even more. And I got saved. But she did not continue in her righteousness. She ended up in hell. Is that going to be you? Because that is the saddest story. See, and even Paul, a preacher, feared this very thing, right? 1 Corinthians 9:26-27 says, therefore so run, not as uncertainly, So fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. I mean, it will be a very sad story that Jeremy's here preaching, and then people get saved because this sermon goes all over the world. But Jeremy later lost because he did not continue in righteousness. That is a sad story. That is a very sad story. If that will be you or me, it will be the saddest story indeed. The time is nigh. Messiah is coming. Gotta hold on to your righteousness. Gotta plant your feet in. Be stubborn in righteousness. Refuse to yield to sin. Those who are lukewarm, ever learning, never growing. You know, like, there are people who have been keeping the feast days longer than I. Like, you should be teaching me. I should be sitting at your feet and teaching me. Not the opposite. Ever learning, never growing. You gotta look at yourself. And what we looked at last week, the cycle of apostasy, relapse, retribution, repentance, rescue, relapse, retribution. Like that is not the growth pattern of a believer. That is not the growth pattern of a believer. You have to come out of that cycle. You absolutely have to. Solomon had a great start, but it will be a saddest story. Do not end up like Solomon. Don't fall away. Don't take your eyes off the prize. Anyone can fall. Anyone. You have to hold on to your righteousness, saints. You got to be stubborn in righteousness. You got to plant your feet in, dig in and say, I am not moving anywhere but following Yahshua. You got to be stubborn in your righteousness. Refuse to yield to sin. Refuse. Run the race and finish it. And your glory shall be greater than the glory Solomon ever had, because it will be the glory of Yahweh, who has promised great things for those who endure to the end. Solomon was a king. He had rule and power and glory. But for those who endure to the end, there is a greater glory coming that is greater than Solomon's glory. And this is what Yahshua promises us in Revelation 2:25 through 28. Only hold fast what you have until I come. The one who conquers and who does what? Keeps my works until the end. To him I will give authority, rule over the nations. And he will rule them with a rod of iron. And as when earthen pots are broken in pieces, even as I myself have received authority from my Father, and I will give him the morning star. I don't understand exactly what that means, but it sure sounds great. Don't end up like Solomon. Endure to the end. Yahweh bless you.